Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Blue Leadership with your host, Dennis Nair. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He's also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI LEDA Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership Program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. And with that, I'll kick things over to Dennis to introduce our featured guest.
Sarah, thank you. And today is a milestone. Today is episode number 25 of Blue Leadership. And who other than could we have as a guest than Dr. Erik Fritsvold, the academic director, founder, educator within the program. There's no other guests. So Dr. Fritsvold, thank you for being here.
Wow, Dennis, I'm honored. And to you and Sarah and the whole team, huge congratulations. 25 episodes. I can't believe it. And thank you for all your heartfelt vigor, sharing the LEPSL community with the world. So it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate everything that you do.
My pleasure. And the truth is, as I said offline, team effort all the way, 100%. And just a little bit for the audience, just a little bit about Dr. Fritsvold. And most of the time I could do this right from recollection, but I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to just refer to my notes here. So again, academic director, founder, he directs all aspects of the program. And when I say all aspects, I mean all aspects, from developing the curriculum, evolving the curriculum, choosing the faculty, admitting the students, dealing with student issues. The list goes on and on. So from the factory floor to the top of the tower, that's what Dr. Fritsvold does. He's been with the USD since 2005. Prior to LEPSL, he was an associate professor in sociology in the crime justice, law, and society concentration. And he was also the department chair and associate dean in the College of Arts and Sciences. He's been recognized by the Princeton Review as one of America's best 300 professors, which if you know him or have had a class with him, you'll understand why. BA in sociology from none other than USD. And then he has his master's and his PhD in criminology, law, and society from the University of California at Irvine. Lastly, I just want to say some of the reviews, every student gets a chance to review the professors, and what they get from Dr. Fritsvold is best professor ever, great instructor, humble, fantastic, amazing, brilliant. This is just a little snippet of who our guest is today. So Dr. Fritsvold, I'll stop right there, but we are very thankful that you're the milestone guest.
Wow, my goodness, that's a little challenging to sit and listen to, but very kind. Yeah, I appreciate the introduction, and looking forward to the conversation here, Dennis.
So let's open it right up. So LEPSL, can you just talk a little bit about it? So how has this program evolved over time? And for the listeners and viewers, you were the creator of it back in 2015, its inception class, and where we are now, 2023. Can you just talk about its evolution?
Absolutely, and great question. I think the short answer here is it's evolved dramatically. I think students who are in the program in our inaugural class in 2015 would be quite surprised that a lot of the same quote unquote classes they were in might not resemble any of the curriculum they took. Our mission is to do our very best to stay on the cutting edge of a very dynamic profession. And so when the program first started, just as one example, a disproportionate amount of the curriculum was about body-worn cameras. Right, we were kind of right on the crescendo of body-worn camera implementation, especially in the West. And students were exchanging P&P manual screenshots on the discussion boards related to BWCs. And you fast forward to today, IACP and many other professional organizations have a playbook and handbook. So every moment in LEPSL, we're debriefing on the class that just finished. We're executing the current class. We actually plan a few classes ahead. So we're building the course after next. So it's, tell my wife, it is a constant treadmill of LEPSL that will never end, trying to just match the dramatic evolution and the speed of evolution in your profession, which is a challenge, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that's exactly it. The profession evolves at the speed of light. It's constantly changing, and to know that the program is mirroring that in courses that are relevant, immediately applicable, that's something that most programs cannot say they can do.
And we're so fortunate. We're going to talk quite a bit about the LEPSL community, but the best resource here are our 200 students and 1,100 alumni and faculty like yourselves. And as you know, as a faculty member, you see those, excuse me, those Module 7 assignments called neglected territory. What, under the substantive umbrella in this course, what wasn't covered that your agency is dealing with right now? Students write papers and do presentations, and clearly that's, I believe in your profession, you would call it a clue as to things that we should include in future courses. And often we lean back on those student experts to execute those presentations for us. So one example there, we had Captain Brian Bubar out of the San Pablo Police Department in California did his Module 7 project on how to use UAVs in crisis response. And it was so good. He's evolved that over time, and it's now a mainstay of our curriculum. So we have just the right community to help us accomplish that mission.
That's amazing. And this actually segues to the next question, the faculty. So obviously the program is amazing with the courses, and the program is made up though of the students and the faculty. And we'll talk about the students a little later, but the faculty, can you talk about it, how they're selected, who are the faculty, and whatever you think is relevant?
Sure. And to this day, having done this job roughly a decade, when I started the research in about 2013, I can't believe this is my job. I wake up in the morning and I get to work with this faculty cadre of folks like yourself and about 45 others. I think it's something like 17 chiefs of police, 3 Marine colonels, a lieutenant colonel, some very accomplished legal experts. It's just such a humbling thing. So faculty, I think first and foremost, faculty are here for the mission. That clearly, you know, the academic salary doesn't woo them away from their consulting job, right? They're here because they want to give back to the profession and help train and mentor current and future law enforcement leaders. So we're looking for a mix of experience, which doesn't always correspond with rank, right? It's different types of experience and different lenses on the profession. Of course, strong academic credentials and foundations, but it's more just a willingness to be a mentor and to sink your heart into LEPSL. I think folks like yourselves and the faculty have set an incredibly high bar for a level of investment. And it's not something I've witnessed in other places in academia, at least not often, that a group is so committed to, you know, selflessly giving to others. So it's, I'm in awe to watch you and the faculty in action, to tell you the truth. And so we, of course, have a formal process when a position does open up. We have a vetting process for resumes, and then an interview panel that's staffed by our team and faculty as well. But I don't think it's hyperbole to say, Dennis, I think we have the best law enforcement facing faculty team ever constructed in the history of the world. And I think a little bit of time on Google would provide some evidence to support that position. So I thank you and our whole team for what you do.
Wow. And I think I speak for everyone when I say it's truly our honor and our pleasure to be able to share what we've learned from our lived experiences in an ever changing and sometimes daunting profession with those who are on the front lines of leadership. And to you, a question, was that really your intent to actually help bolster the credibility of the program by making it that not only did the instructors, educators, professors have the academic bona fides, but that they also had the lived credentials? Was that an intentional aspect?
Absolutely, it was intentional. And we're deeply appreciative to the university that gave us the autonomy and flexibility to do that. One of my concerns is that the common model for a program like this is to shoehorn existing faculty into practitioner-facing roles. And sometimes that's a good fit, and sometimes it's not. We were very fortunate to have the ability to seek out, train, oversee, and mentor faculty specifically to accomplish the goals of this program and this program only. So that's really a differentiator for LEPSL, and I wish I could take credit for it. I cannot. That's the founding dean, Jason Lemon, and others who had this vision for a very narrow, effective, and impactful model for a program. So we appreciate the university allowing us that flexibility.
Yeah, that's definitely a value add for sure. And so now we talked a little bit the faculty. So what type of students are drawn? And I say students, and normally the term students has a connotation of, the younger generation going off to school, but students in this term is very, very different. Can you just talk about what the student body is and who are drawn to this?
Absolutely. I think, as you've experienced, it's students who have that growth mindset, to steal a phrase from you, who are dedicating their own time and money in the midst of having a very demanding job and often family commitments, to not only professional development, but personal development as well, to increase their value, sharpen their skill set. I think maybe the best way to answer your question is by example. As you know, and maybe for some context, the average age in our program is early to mid 40s. The overwhelming majority of our students have been away from formal education for some time. The majority have families and are juggling a demanding and unpredictable profession at the same time. But LEPSL isn't the quickest, easiest, or the cheapest, nor should it be. So it attracts students who I think are striving for excellence. And that comes across loud and clear in the classroom, in my view. That, again, an example here, we had a captain from the California Highway Patrol, Cindy Pontes, graduated, I think, 3 cohorts ago. As you know, we require 3 posts on our interactive discussion boards in a week. I had her in class. Her average was over 27 a week. Not superfluous, well-grounded, insightful posts. So I think, like anything in life, you get out of the program what you put into it. And our students have set such a high bar for engagement. And, they earned that 100% A grade 2 days into the module, but here they are 6 days in with equal vigor. So it's a pleasure to work alongside public safety professionals who not only are that committed to the program, but are just that committed to themselves and their communities and their agencies. It's really an exciting thing.
Yeah, I'm sure for you, as the person who founded it, to watch this evolve and see that aspect, I'm sure is extremely rewarding. And you mentioned discussion boards, and for the listeners and viewers, some may not know exactly. Obviously, those who have been through the program or who are in the program know. But let's talk about that, the value of the discussion boards. And for me, I've gone through the program, I felt the value was incredible. You're learning from them, you're sharing your experiences, and it really makes the class come alive. Can you just talk about it, like how the idea was to bring them in, and then what they are, and how they are really weighted within each course?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, we work really hard on the curriculum. Our faculty team sets such a high bar, but it's really the students that are, we often say, the secret sauce of the program. And they come together on these interactive discussion boards. We pose a substantive question that relates to that week's material, but typically they're asked to create a hybrid answer that leverages evidence and themes from the substantive material with their lived experience. And so it's such a rich and real-time examination of the issues. If you want a cross-sectional look at what's happening in public safety across the country and beyond, these discussion boards are a fantastic window into it. And we craft the classes very deliberately. So there's a mix of rank, a mix of geography. And so you have a 30-year high-ranking veteran from the East Coast talking to a third-year new patrol deputy from the West Coast, and how they're sharing common challenges and opportunities. And there's an obvious mentoring and experience value add for our higher-ranking students. But I've been told by many that there's an equal value add giving high-ranking students a window into what's happening at the front lines. I had a chief pull me aside, and we had a very candid conversation. And his position was, it's hard for him to get a candid frontline perspective on an issue in his agency. His concern is, are these folks telling me what they think I want to hear? They're giving me some filtered response. But on the discussion boards, he says, what an opportunity. And he actually always sought out the newer people and asked them questions to get candid and frank insight on a particular issue. So it's, you bring people together across rank, across geography, across experience, and talk about the issues of the day. It's my biggest challenge when the program first started, Dennis. I get up pretty early, and it'd be a Saturday morning. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to hop on the discussion boards for 30 minutes and just kind of post a few things and do a landscape assessment. And there I was 3 hours later, just so enthralled by the conversation. So it's the coolest thing we got going in LEPSL.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also shows that, sometimes the challenges are the same, and that every agency, whether they are on the East Coast or the West Coast or in between, they're not unique. But it's interesting that it doesn't just become an event session, it becomes a problem solving session, because an agency can say, yeah, we had the same problem. Here's how we dealt with it. Right. Oh, can you send me a copy of that policy? Or sure, reach out to me. Let's talk. That's some more of the secret sauce. And it's that networking. And I think that's an unwritten value that has tremendous weight to it.
I couldn't agree more strongly. And I know this question's coming up, so I'll hold off, but we have some exciting things moving forward where we're going to try to even leverage that and take it to the next level.
Yeah, we'll definitely get that. What I wanted to ask, though, as a follow-up, so people are learning from one another. They got this program with these courses in conflict resolution, data fluency, contemporary issues, which covers everything from recruitment and retention to wellness and the modern challenges of policing. We're looking at a program that really makes people capable in the highest degree possible of doing their jobs. How do they leverage their LEPSL degree? So they're in the program, they graduate. How do they leverage it at both phases?
Sure. You mentioned the network. I think that might be the primary way, sharing policy, sharing experience, sharpening your skill set. But in a more tangible way, the mission of LEPSL is first and foremost career advancement. We want to be very respectful. We realize the time, energy, money that folks must invest in the program. Like, we have to earn that, and we have to earn that every day. We operate with a profound respect with the sacrifices that our students are making. So from a career advancement perspective, I'd respectfully refer anybody out there to our criminaljustice.sandiego.edu website and the testimonials tab, where students have reflected on the LEPSL program and shared a little bit about their experience. And a lot of that is about promotion and advancement. We know that a master's degree is industry standard, or at the very least becoming industry standard for the top of the pyramid positions. But more broadly, it's not only about career advancement in public safety. We got a great track record, something I'm really proud of, graduates becoming adjunct faculty at colleges and universities after they graduate. And I can't think of a more impactful and mutually beneficial way to impact the national narrative, mentor young people, than putting LEPSL grads in the classroom. And lastly, I'll say we've had quite a few of our graduates post-retirement transition pretty seamlessly to the private sector. And our running theory here is the private sector might not understand the prestige of the FBI National Academy, or they might not understand the prestige of the California Post Command College and all this great training that you all do. But a master's degree is something that's universally recognized. So we think career advancement, teaching at the college and university level, and private sector transition, along with personal growth, kind of the 4 pillars of our goal.
Yeah, and I can say from firsthand experience, that's all 100% on point. The program iterates. It doesn't stay stagnant. We talked a little bit at the beginning, what it was in 2015 with maybe a focus on body-worn cameras, which were really just starting to become mainstream then, to where it is now. How is it that you, as the academic director, the founder, how do you iterate it? Like right now, the course that we're teaching is on effective leadership in public safety.
Sure.
Maybe that's a good example, but can you talk a little bit about its individual course involvement?
Absolutely. And this was a bit more challenging at the beginning because, we didn't know what we didn't know, as they say. Now we triangulate different sources of evidence to help evolve the curriculum. So first, it's the surveys that students fill out at the end of every class. There are explicit questions about what we should do as a program to serve them to the best of our ability. Faculty debriefs and after-action meetings are very helpful. But it might be the formal and informal feedback that students and faculty offer that helps evolve the curriculum the most. And what I'm really appreciative of about your profession is you rarely have a student or faculty just coming to you with a problem. They say, hey, I'll give you an example. Tom Worthy out of Oregon. We have a law class that looks at law and technology, which is an incredibly fast-moving class. And he said, the class was maybe a little California-centric for me. he said, let me connect you with a colleague of mine who's the director of the Criminal Justice Commission in Oregon that reports to elected officials there, to get some insight on the Oregon experience. That person was kind enough to sit with an interview, and now that person provides the Oregon perspective on these issues. So we're so fortunate to kind of tap into that network. I'll give you one more example. In the data fluency class that you mentioned, we had a detective from Oceanside Police Department, Chris James. As his project in that class, he researched catalytic converter theft. And that was the origin story that, fast forward 18 months, he's now founded and works with the district attorney's office, a multi-agency initiative called the Catalytic Converter Initiative that started in a LEPSL class that's now multi-agency. It involves the FBI and others about an inventive way to prosecute catalytic converter theft. He was nice enough to get his district attorney partner and sit with an interview about how San Diego County is tackling this problem that's impacting communities across the country. So at the beginning, we didn't have that privilege, but now, leaning heavily on our tremendously well-qualified students and faculty, the evolution and trying to stay on the cutting edge becomes easier and easier. Still a ton of work, still tough choices to be made, but we have just the right people to provide us the guidance.
Yeah, and that innovation part is key, especially, I mean, obviously I see evidence-based policing in there and that innovation part. So, you know, when you look at like what's quality policing, and it's the people, it's the partnerships, it's the process, but it's that innovation too. That's a key ingredient. And it sounds like that's a great example of it right there.
And I'm gonna jump in. You interviewed Chief Cheryl Victorian out of Waco about relational policing, and I think there's a good argument to be made that that's the next evolving model of cutting edge community engagement, and how agencies and public safety professionals in the community can co-create public safety. And we get to have her voice interviewed by you, who has this tremendous wealth of experience yourself, into the LEPSL program to talk about maybe the defining issue of this decade, police community relations. So it's through these affiliations and listening and bringing all this expertise into the classroom that makes LEPSL what it is.
Yeah, wow. What a, you know, if I had to stamp a soundbite on this podcast, it would be that is really a defining part, component of policing, and that's the relationships between the police and the communities they serve. And I think that a program like this really helps to address that and build upon it. And I mean, so I want to, one of the things we're looking to do in these podcasts is really look at the person who's the guest, and not just their resume and their qualifications, but who they are. And we're starting to do that more and more now when we interview faculty and alumni. Dr. Fritsvold, so let's look at you. So you PhD criminologist, founder, director, educator, problem solver, all these things. What is it that made you want to commit and dedicate yourself and your career to public safety service and serving those who serve?
I appreciate the question. And quite honestly, it started just a little bit by happenstance, in that I love undergraduate education. I found that career very, very rewarding. I got to surf on the way to work most days. I mean, just a fantastic setup. And in 2013, Dean Jason Lemon and Associate Dean George Reed, both who have gone on to some fantastic opportunities in academia, kind of tapped me to start the research process for this program. And I was honored. I always believe, every half decade, we should deliberately and intentionally do something significant for professional development. Come from a blue collar construction household. So there were, a lot of teachers, firefighters, police, logging, construction, fishing was kind of the community I grew up in. So it was a good cultural fit, but I didn't know or anticipate how rewarding it was going to be. And the people that you have an opportunity to work with in public safety, in LEPSL, we strive for excellence because it's the standard that you all have set. And if we're not matching the vigor and thoughtfulness with the program that matches the vigor and thoughtfulness that you all bring to your jobs, we've failed. I'll just give you a handful of examples, and I could give you hundreds. But the people I get to work with in LEPSL, our very first class, we had a an applicant whose GPA was a little lower than we like to see normally. And his application explained that on September 12th, 2001, he dropped out of his undergraduate institution to serve his country in the wake of the September 11th terrorist attacks. And he wrote his admissions essay about that. So he had to piece together his units, as often service folks have to do. And what a fantastic person to be able to serve. Let's see, you and I have both had the pleasure of working with the first female of color at the chief's ranks of a very, very large organization who didn't break the glass ceiling. Clearly, she shattered the glass ceiling. Just the other day, I was talking with the chief of police who is from an agency that's quite understaffed, quite challenged financially, and had an opportunity to move to another agency in the region, take a significant raise for himself, very significant, go to an agency with almost full staffing and really strong community support. And he chose to stay with the agency that he grew up in. He said, my job's not done here yet. How many people out there in the world are going to pass up a better structural situation and a significant raise out of a commitment to the mission? Another recent LEPSL grad, first and only female on their tactical team in their agency's history. I mean, the caliber of people you get to work with. So one of my main questions about LEPSL is, I just kind of went into this, law enforcement facing role, just kind of as the average everyday person. I knew I wanted to do the best job I could do, but I didn't really know what to expect. And I just wish, like, sounds a little lofty, but I wish America could have the same experience I did.
Wow.
That America could go through this crescendo of, not a 4 hours half-day Citizens Academy kind of exposure, but a multi-year depth-oriented understanding and learning experience about public safety. And it's not only the job, and there's the obvious answers, which is, look at the recent school shooting in Nashville and how those officers responded. I mean, you literally run towards the bullets and towards the fire and towards the danger. There's that part of it, but it's the student who started a police athletic league in the most disadvantaged community in his jurisdiction, does it without fanfare, and he's been doing it for a decade. It's the type of people you get to work with. And so I just wish others could have the same experience I did, and I would be convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the national narrative would be dramatically different if other people just could have had the same privilege and exposure that I did. So you wake up in the morning with that mindset, kind of striving for excellence to meet the standards that you all have set. And that's a high bar and a high expectation. And all I can say is we work to the best of our ability to do that. But it's a pretty awe-inspiring thing, Chief.
That's amazing. And as you were talking, I'm thinking, if the national narrative, what it is, if people could see what you get to see, and this is the true people behind the badge and the profession. And the thing, and I'll speak for all the police officers of every rank in this program, is you get us. You get policing, you get the people, you understand the challenges, the mindset, just everything. And I said to you offline, you'd made a great officer to work with, without a doubt. And I think that surprises a lot of people, because a lot of people, they have the right or wrong, they have the connotation, academic, they don't know, they don't get it, they didn't live that experience, but you get it, and you respect those, and it shows. And I think you touched on it, you really talked about it, but what is it, the rewards that you get from it? I mean,
Sure.
Obviously it's kind of like, I think you described it, but can you just touch on that a little more?
Sure. And I'm going to dovetail with the first part of that. And I appreciate the kind words, but I approach this job as quite often the least qualified person in the room. And so I try to, I can help with research and writing, and, the more academic parts of the program are really where my training lies. So the rest of it is really good listening. And so again, what a great learning experience for me. The rewards, I mean, it's kind of reshaped how I see the world a little bit. And I often get disillusioned, as I think many do, about, clearly our country is facing some pretty significant challenges. The state of California is facing some pretty significant challenges. And it's so heartening to get to meet a group of law enforcement leaders. And it gives me faith that, well, this critical component of society is in the right hands. And it's kind of an affirming thing and an uplifting thing, that there are just people at this level, not only of capacity, but also of selflessness. that are doing important jobs at an important moment in history. And so, in addition to all the personal things that I just shared, kind of that optimism about the future, and that public safety is in good hands, and that's such a critical role, that makes me more optimistic about our future collectively. So it's again, that all translates to a very high bar of service in LEPSL, but it's a challenge we're up to, and one that we attack with vigor. We don't always get it right, but it's with that understanding that we approach the program.
Yeah, and I'll say, you gave that example of the chief who stayed at his agency, not to go to another agency that could have been much more lucrative because he still had work to be done. And I really feel that speaks to you as well, because with your credentials and your experience and your PhD and everything, you could go somewhere and clearly make a lot more, but the hours you work and what you do here, we recognize that also. So thank you.
I appreciate that. It's, again, we're trying to match the standard of vigor that we witness every day, and we'd be hypocrites if we did anything else.
So leadership, that's the essence of LEPSL. That's what we're about. That's what we're trying to grow and build, and not just in an academic sense, but in a practical, that it's applied to every aspect of a person's professional and personal life. So one of the questions we're asking is I'd like to know is podcasts or books. Is there any that really resonate with you and that you could recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. Great question. I'll just share the three that are impactful to me in the moment here. Obviously, Simon Sinek's Start With Why, commonly talked about leadership piece, but I love the mission focus and the rationale transparency discussions, really important. From a professional and personal development standpoint, I've been listening to a lot of Jocko podcasts and social media and echelon front stuff. That's probably more of a personal development and personal mindset. But what I'd recommend in LEPSL, we run as you've experienced, a pretty streamlined organization. That's part of our mission, right? LEPSL infrastructure is supported by one thing and one thing only, and that's student tuition. And so we operate with that understanding. We want to be as respectful of that as possible. So with that in mind, I listen to a lot of kind of business productivity podcasts, but the one that I would recommend here, it's called Extreme Productivity, put out by Kevin Kruse, Kruse, and just how to maximize your day, how to serve others in a leadership role, nerdy things, how to manage your calendar and balance meetings with to-do items, real tangible sound advice. So I know all of us in LEPSL, yourself included, grind out some pretty long hours, and you want to squeeze every possible minute out of every day. That podcast helps me get there. I think he's stopped making new ones, but they're not time sensitive, right? The lessons from a few years ago are just as applicable right now. So that passes my time if I'm commuting or getting a quick workout in. That's what I'll listen to.
And now we look at from a 30,000 foot view, LEPSL. Where do you see this program going? Hopefully you're still, without a doubt, steering the ship as the captain, or as the general of the little LEPSL army that you've built. Where do you see it? 5 years, 10 years, beyond? What are some things you'd like to see happen?
That is a fantastic, open-ended, very exciting question. I'll share the first thing that we're going to do is hopefully within the next calendar year, we're going to be able to launch a class for alumni. So it'll be all for free and all for fun. And it'll be a highlight reel of what's happening in LEPSL, in large part so students who graduated in 2015, 2016 can see what's happening in LEPSL now, and they can get that great Chief Neil Gang presentation on organizational wellness, or Gordon Graham on recruitment and retention, and all these exciting things. So we're going to have a professional development area to help with networking and recruiting, and let's leverage our 1,100 alumni so they can continue to work together. We can have a value add for LEPSL. That's the first thing. But there's some bigger picture questions, Chief, and I don't know what the right or wrong answer is here. Clearly, first and foremost, let's continue to run this cutting edge, extraordinarily rewarding master's degree. Like, that's clearly something we can't lose sight of. But given how humbled we've been by the reception of LEPSL, the caliber of people we get to work with, the idea that in 10 years we could have a fully integrated associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, the idea that We could evolve to be the perf of the West with think tanks and policy influence and white papers and recommendations. I think the West Coast perspective, or disproportionate West Coast perspective, is missing in some of these national debates, and there's a lot of value to be offered there. So, and we could hold LE conferences twice a month, and again, being the perf of the West is not something that I feel is unrealistic. So it's a scope and scale and service kind of question, and I'm just feel that we're fortunate to be able to team up with folks like yourself and the existing faculty and students to see what's going to best serve the profession moving forward. And those are some exciting but yet to be answered questions.
Yeah, and bonus question from me here. So
Right.
I'm listening to this, and you have people that are listening, and maybe they're not part of the program. Maybe there's someone who is part, and they're going to share this podcast with a friend who's on the cusp of thinking of going on for their advanced degree, and they don't know what to study. What is it that you would tell the people that are sitting on the fence and they want to get a master's degree? They want to do it in something that's relevant, that's quality, that they can leverage. What is it that you would tell those listeners and viewers?
Great question. I would say, please do your due diligence. And I think you'll quickly understand that LEPSL has something that's really, really unique. And I think we've hit on kind of all those touchstones here. Cutting edge, constantly evolving, demanding treadmill of a curriculum rotation. Faculty team of uniquely qualified academic practitioners. And a student community that, I think much like these prestigious national organizations like the FBI-NA or California Post Command College and others, that you tap into this network that is beneficial in so many ways. We also know that education is undeniably part of the evolution of the public safety professions, and the data bears that out pretty clearly. So our goal in LEPSL is for folks to enhance the level of service they have for their communities and their agencies. So if you're on the fence, I would once again refer you to that student testimonials tab. And it's obviously my baby. I'm far from objective. So listen to what some students and fellow LE professionals have to say. And I hope this podcast has been a window into that. And again, I want to wrap up here by saying I appreciate all the work you've done kind of sharing LEPSL with the world. And there's probably no better way for students to learn about the program than to watch some Blue Leadership episodes.
Perfect way to end it. And like I said at the beginning, team effort all the way. And so this is episode 25. If we don't have you back before it, you will definitely be episode 50. And every 25, no matter what, we're getting you back, Dr. Fritsvold. I know Sarah's going to come in and close us out. I just want to say, again, on behalf of faculty, student, which I was one, thank you for everything you do. It's clear that it's a labor of love for you and that you put the students first, and this program is continually evolving, and it's no wonder that it's one of the best programs, if not the best program for law enforcement professionals in the country. So thank you for everything you're doing.
That's incredibly kind, Chief. Thank you. And as I hope the theme came across throughout the podcast, our job is just to match the standards that y'all have set. So I appreciate that very much. And clearly I talk for a living. So this is a good time to end the podcast. Chief, I appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you both so much for your time today, and a big congratulations for this milestone episode of Blue Leadership. And to our viewers, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet the law enforcement heroes and leaders who are part of the MS-LEPSL family. If you'd like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of our Facebook page or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.